Yes, this is the Mark Haney Show, and we are on a mission to ignite the entrepreneurial revolution right here in the hometown we love. And we do that through sharing stories of winning, through inspiring people to think about their life, their entrepreneurial journey, and hopefully educate them in a way that gives them a little bit better guidance on how they might approach their entrepreneurial journey. And today, we have two people that I truly respect. John Rinehart, the president of business operations for the Sacramento Kings, is joining us today. Super excited about having John on the show. And along with them is, you're going to say this is an interesting mix, is a guy named Andrew Gardner. And he is not a basketball player. He is an entrepreneur, and he is the co-founder of a company called Humanly. And today we're going to share what they have in common. And one of the things that they have in common beyond sports is the appreciation for entrepreneurship, but also something that the Kings, our beloved basketball team, is doing for the innovators economy right here in Sacramento. It's called Kings Capitalize. So stick around. You're going to hear the story of Kings Capitalize and how John and his team and the leadership of the Sacramento Kings are investing into our local economy directly through entrepreneurship with this incredible pitch extravaganza, this pitch competition called Kings Capitalize. Stick around.
And now it is my pleasure to be joined by John Rinehart and Andrew Gardner. John Rinehart, many of you know him. He is the president of business operations with the Sacramento Kings. And Andrew Gardner is the co-founder of Humanly. So what do we have these two folks, these two studs on our show today for? Well, we're going to talk a little bit about sports, but we're also going to be talking innovation and entrepreneurship and what the Sacramento Kings are doing. The Sacramento Kings is probably the most innovative company in sports. And so the fact that they host Kings Capitalize, among other things, is a enormous asset for our region. So maybe I'll start off, John. Maybe just give me an overview of a little of your background and why are the Kings so committed to innovation and entrepreneurship?
Yeah, absolutely. Mark, thanks for having me, and great to see you, Andrew, and just want to congratulate you on all the success you've had. You know, it was great to have you in the Capitalize contest a couple of years back and to see how that's, helped you grow to what you've been today. So it's been awesome to watch. For me, I've been now at the Kings. This is my 22nd season, so have been in Sacramento and part of this organization for a long time. And really, personally, my kids were born here and are growing up here. And to watch the growth of the city and to watch what it offers for not only the people that are older and have been here for a long time, but the youth is really what I love. And, for the Kings perspective, it really was energized when Vivek bought the team. Vivek Ranadive, he has one mission, and that is to use this platform. The Kings are a global platform. And he knows that. And, he knows that his mission is to use that platform for good and to, impact the lives in a positive way for those that we touch. And it all starts with our youth. That's the next generation that's going to guide our city, guide our region, guide our country, create those next Fortune 500 companies that we're going to see. So to support that is really just supporting the future of our city. So that's why, we've dug in and we're committed to it, and we look forward to continuing.
Well, Andrew, let's bring you in. You're building a company called Humanly, and that company is blowing up. You won Kings Capitalize, which is a pitch competition. It's more than that. Could you describe what you went through and kind of what it's meant, and maybe a little of your background as well?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I guess starting with the background, I actually grew up here in the region in Davis. So in the Sacramento area, I was laughing. My dad actually worked off Truxell many years. So we were regulars at Arco Arena when I was growing up. And I was fortunate that my middle school was the, Chris Webber and Jason Williams and Peja and the, kind of the glory years, right? And so I grew up, and now my kids are, he was wearing an old Kings jersey the other night as we were watching Sabonis dunk on the Thunder. But yeah, so, and, like many people in the region, my story was, I went away to college, ended up in the Bay Area, especially people in tech like myself, spent, about 7 years living in San Francisco and did some time in Seattle as well. But, as I grew in my career and got more into entrepreneurship and started thinking about founding Humanly, being back here now that we're raising kids, me and my wife, we're both from the region, seeing the kind of the growth and the birth of technology here in Sacramento being led by the Kings. It's been amazing to see the Grins and the power schools who just went public, and all the success. Intel was one of the first, right? The success stories they've had here locally really pay off big time when it comes to someone like me being super early stage, right? And the Kings just doubling down on that by providing Capitalize as a resource, right? I mean, I look at it, yes, it's a pitch competition, but really it's a platform for us to go out, meet people, whether that's like you, Mark, like I met Monique Brown from Haney at the very first Kings Capitalize I participated in, and, Rashawn Holmes and Eric Armstead of the 49ers, they've now invested in our advisors in our company. We met them at Capitalize events as well, right? So not just like, hey, here's my company, here's what we're doing. Do you like the sound of it? But really the platform that is showing off technology and showing off early stage companies here in Sacramento and how the community can kind of embolden us and empower us to continue to grow.
Well, let's dive into Capitalize. So you're an innovative company, John, and what led to the idea of doing Capitalize? It's become now a kind of a household term in the startup ecosystem.
Yeah, it's been great. Like, it started as just an idea of how can we kind of spur some momentum and innovation here in the city. And as you said, from an innovation standpoint, Vivek's mission is always one of, if we're not innovating, we're dying. And, his mission to us is always figure out ways to innovate. And we have been, deemed one of the most innovative companies in sports. We don't take that, statement lightly. We feel like we have a commitment to that statement, and it's something that we want to continue on. So we were the first ones to launch in the NBA, this crowdsourced kind of entrepreneurship competition, where we wanted to just see if we could get some minds kind of working. Nothing really had happened in Sacramento like that before. We weren't sure how many people we were going to get to participate, but had great partners, with the city and even with you, Mark, and Haney Biz. And, now we have Dialpad coming in as one of our great partners. So when we launched it, it was that stepping stone. And then once we saw the innovation and the interest that it had, we knew that this had to become an annual thing. And, quite frankly, I think it has to be more than annual. I think there's different segments of innovation that we can start targeting and growing, Capitalize. So I still see Capitalize, even though we're in our 7th year of Capitalize, believe it or not. I still see it as a growth stage idea that we can build on and continue to kind of innovate on in and of itself.
Okay, well, maybe we should take a minute too and talk about this year's Kings Capitalize. There's the event, and then there's a presentation that happens actually at a halftime of a Kings game. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So what happens in the event is we invite any of those startup ideas or companies to apply for the Capitalize. They go to kings.com/capitalize, and they enter their ideas. And then from that list, we usually narrow it down to about the Sweet 16. And we get down to 16 companies that, we want to move forward with further along the line. And as Andrew said, it's more than just a competition. During that process, we're giving advice. We're trying to expose those groups to different people that could help them within the ecosystem of a pitch. And then, that ultimately will get narrowed down to the final 8. And then that final 8 will end up doing a pitch day at Golden One Center in front of the judging panel. I've been blessed and fortunate enough to be part of that judging panel each year, because I just love, watching what comes out of it. And then after that judging panel, we have a game on April 3rd against the Warriors. And that's where it's part of our tech night, which will have a whole bunch of different technology type stuff going on. That's where we will reveal the final winner, but that's where the fans will have a chance to also vote during that game on who they like, because they'll be able to pitch in front of the crowds.
Okay, so Andrew, put me in the mindset of a founder who's getting ready to pitch, right? You've gone through, you've applied, you've got down to the Sweet 16, and then you've made it to be able to get up there and pitch. But then you've got judges like John. I've been a judge. I'm either emceeing, judging, or somewhere running around. But it's a group of investors and influential people that are got their eyeballs on you. What's the emotion?
Yeah.
How does that feel?
Yeah, you want to laugh. I'll actually take it a step back. So the first year I participated in Capitalize, I was actually thinking, so I snuck out of my day job as because we had founded Humanly, but like we couldn't go full time on it until, I have a family, my co-founder, we both had mortgages and kids. So we had to go fundraise before we could go full time. And I was fortunate that I was at a tech company, and Tyler Smith and DJ Stefan at SkySlope believed in me, and they let me work on this kind of side project while I was working. But I had to sneak out of my day job to go pitch the Sweet 16 at Capitalize the very first year, right? So I was nervous, and I'm sure I fell on my face, but that was the learning that it took to then come back. Now that was 3 years ago. So then 2 years ago came back in the midst of COVID. And then that was the event where we ended up winning the competition. I think it was 2019, 2020. And in that case, we had actually had a real business, and it was more than just like me sneaking out and had a hunch or an idea. We had some validation there, right? And we're fortunate in what we do, which is bringing efficiency and equity to hiring, right? Most people in the room had either been one to hire individuals or had been on the other side of a really broken candidate experience, right? So we're fortunate, like, some others, brilliant people here in Sacramento that are working on ideas I couldn't even begin to try and wrap my head around. But for us, it was more so just presenting it in a way that people could understand and truly be, connected with what it is we're doing, our mission. And, again, the amazing people at the Kings and in the room were great, gave us awesome feedback, and it eased some of those nerves I might have had. Yeah.
Well,
Andrew, did you participate in the workshops?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was great, right? Like, and part of the journey here as founding a startup is you kind of have to fall on your face, right? You kind of have to get those swings to then know where you're going, to hone, to refine your messaging, how you're presenting yourself and what the product is, right? And so even in those moments where I was up in front of Monique and, and Louis Stewart from the city of Sacramento, who's now at NVIDIA, and John, and like getting the good feedback as well as the bad feedback allowed me to then grow how it is we're presenting what we're doing and moving forward as a business.
John, the workshops, can you elaborate on those? How do those work?
Yeah, so with the Elite Eight, we have a couple days open to those groups prior to going to the final judges pitch, where we do some workshops and walk through some role playing. We kind of give advice, anything that someone might need to do a final pitch, because sometimes, like Andrew said, in his first year, it might be the first time he's ever gone out to try to pitch, companies. So just giving advice on, what investors might look at, what the judges might be looking at, really anything that somebody wants. It's kind of a great opportunity to, take advantage of people who have been there and done that before you actually have to go and sit in front of a panel.
Yeah, and from an investor standpoint, I've invested into a number of companies that have gone through Kings Capitalize, and I believe that's if not the best, one of the best showcases for entrepreneurship in the region. So from an investor standpoint, it's a good place to go if you want to see some of the rising talent in our region. And as we all know, it's those first early checks that come into a company that really can set you off to the races. So I would definitely encourage our investors to be thinking about going out there. So.
Yeah, and it's amazing how much it has grown since that first year. Like this year, I think, we were approaching 200 applicants that submitted actual real business cases and business ideas that, many of them will eventually come to fruition. So there's a lot of innovation and entrepreneurship right now in the Sacramento region. And it's of people of all demographics and, people of all backgrounds, which is great. Like, we want this to be a very open competition that, doesn't exclude anybody. If you have a good idea and you have a business plan, then you have a chance.
Well, how do you determine who gets in? Is it the most investable companies, the most innovative companies?
There's a little bit of both of that. So the first wave, when we get down to the final 16, often, unfortunately, we are probably cutting investable and innovative companies just because you have to get to a manageable number. But you are looking for, what problem are we solving? Is there an actual problem that's being solved is often a question that comes up. Is it a company that has a sound business model and sound economics that could go forward? So we don't want to just bring forward ideas that don't necessarily have a launch pad of actually being successful. Like, we want all of our companies that come through Capitalize to be successful. And Andrew's a perfect example of that. But, as well as all the other winners that, we've had over the past years, whether it be, just our most recent one, Predator, and then we had Trifecta, Mark, I know you're very familiar with. Just so many good companies that are out there. It is a difficult task, but it's something that we need to do just to keep the process moving. But like I said, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and I do think kind of early stage entrepreneurs and businesses do fall into a bit of a trap. And early days, like that first year we pitched, like you as an entrepreneur, you fall so in love with this idea, this what your business does, this product you're building, this idea you have, right? But what you begin to realize as you get in front of people like John, who have seen this and done this and are surrounding themselves with other people who have seen it and done it, is that it's not just an idea that's going to make you successful, right? And so I think that first pitch deck I did in Kings Capitalize was like 12 slides on product and then 2 slides on anything else, right? Which is just absolutely not what you want to do, because it's everything. I think now our pitch deck is 1 or 2 slides on product and everything else is the business, the team, all the stuff that you're laughing because the stuff that matters, right?
Yeah.
But you need to be able to get those swings to understand what matters, what doesn't, how it's sounding, how it's coming across, and that, help shape the journey.
Yeah, that's interesting, Andrew. So when you're up there pitching, advice to it's 8, I guess they're going to pitch coming up in 30 days. This show is going to air in a little bit, but this show will air prior to Kings Capitalize, and some of those entrants or participants will probably be watching the show or listening to the show. Should they be asking for money? I mean, what's the ask? What's the call to action typically if you're a founder in that scenario?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say it probably isn't the best avenue to get up there and say, hey, we're raising $5 million on a seed round and we'd love to have you because generally it's a pretty mixed group there of not just investors but community leaders. And I mentioned John and the Kings do such a great job. I think that on our panel, Lewis from the city of Sacramento, and they had so many different part of it too is for an early company, yeah, we want to go fundraise, but the quickest way for us to grow is going and finding Moss Adams, a local accounting firm here, who's now been a customer for 3 years, and that they've been a bigger part in shaping our success. Just being a customer than any investor has really helped propel us, right? So I think it's less necessarily about presenting it as this investment opportunity, more so about putting your best foot forward of who you are, where you're at as a business, what impact you're trying to make, and then what opportunities there are for all these different stakeholders to help you on that journey and get involved, right? Whether that's investing, whether that's Eric Armstead, who was at the event that came on board as an advisor and has been a huge part of kind of our diversity journey. We're here to help make, hiring more diverse, right?
Armstead's a football guy. What's he doing in a Kings stadium?
Yeah. Well, he's a local kid, right? Grew up in Elk Grove and, is and involved in so many amazing initiatives here locally, right? And every time I talk to Eric, I forget how just genuine and down to earth as a guy he you would think, right? And John sees it every day with the athletes he works with. But yeah, there's so many people that it's such a platform for you to, again, present who it is you are and why you're here and what your journey is, and have people come on board and help you along that way.
Yeah, and you mentioned it, Mark, as football player. More and more, what we're seeing is professional athletes are coming much more in tune to investments and entrepreneurships. They realize that their career on the field or on the court is one thing, but life after the sport is the most important thing. And we have some very, very savvy athletes that really look into what's investable, when should I invest, how do I invest, and that's to Andrew's point, that's that's how we're going to get to that next generation of investors, because that's who our kids are looking up to right now, is like, what are they doing? So, I think it's great. Like, the fact that the athletes are involved in this and are really happy to come to this event. And as Andrew said, very engaged. They're not just there and sitting and watching, they're there for a reason. That's what the young people of our region are going to see. And hopefully, they'll build off of that.
Yeah, I agree. I think definitely the athletes, we look up to them as heroes, but the entrepreneurs are the heroes of the American economy. And so, you take the risk and you make the sacrifice, and we need to sort of blend that together so that we have more wins overall. Okay, so I'm gonna bounce off of Kings Capitalize, unless you guys want to stay here, and maybe talk a little bit about let's start with talking a little bit about the Kings business. You mentioned Tyler Smith and DJ Steffens of Sky Slope, Andrew, a minute ago, that you used to work for those guys. I see those guys in the front row of the Kings game. I'm up in I share a loft with a couple other guys that you guys both know, and so I can look down and see the guys in the front row. But so this question is more like to John, is like the customer base or the client base. You got the loft guys, you got the suite people, and then you have the people in the front couple of rows. Is that really where the big revenue comes from? Is those hired ticket sales, or how do you look at the breakdown of that?
It's actually quite diverse breakdown from a revenue standpoint. Like, clearly you have your floor seat holders who they're spending the most money per annual on an annual basis with us, but there's not as many of those. That's a very limited quantity of seats that are out there. So those are highly sought after, and there's a limited group of people that have those and have access to those. But then you also have your suites and your lofts, which is another big chunk of revenue that's coming in, and a lot of that is the corporate base, the professional service firms here in Sacramento. Like in Sacramento, as we all know, we don't have a lot of, or any Fortune 500 companies or any of those larger corporations that headquarter here, but we do have a lot of professional service firms and a lot of smaller type companies that utilize those products. But then we also have a very big chunk of our revenue comes from all of our lower bowl and upper bowl seating. That's where most of the people coming through the door are sitting. So we treat every one of those categories as the most important category, because anytime a fan walks through the doors of Golden One Center, they become our customer, and they're our responsibility for the day to make sure that their journey throughout that game and throughout that event is one that's memorable in a lot of different ways, where they're either meeting perfect strangers and having a great time, or they have their family and they're creating lifelong memories with that group that they're with. So it's definitely different dynamics, but all our customers when they walk through the door.
Well, it's interesting because I started off, Andrew, you talked about the old arena. I think I was a season ticket holder, I believe, the first year they came to town. I was probably about your age. How old are you, about 25?
Yeah.
I was in my 20s when they came to town.
Yeah, perfect.
And maybe 30. And we got season tickets up like 2 from the very top, what they call the nosebleeds, right? So, even the nosebleed section, really, you never know, that startup person that might be sitting in the nosebleeds today, he may have a little bit of success and move on down closer to the floor like Tyler Smith or somewhere else. So it's like, I can see the importance, John, of every customer matters.
Yeah, and it's each customer is there somewhat different for different reasons. Like I said, a lot of times, the people sitting up in the lower bowl or the upper bowl, they're there with their family and their friends, and they're there to really create the memories with them. Sometimes in a suite or a loft, you're hosting business clients, or you're there creating that next company that you're thinking about. So we try to make sure that we understand what each and every one of those people are doing. And what's important to them, and make sure that the experience for them is one that they can take away with and be happy and proud about.
And to their credit, just real briefly, I want to shout out John and what the Kings are doing. I have not seen another sports franchise, and I dabbled in sports a little bit before I got into software. I've not seen another sports franchise do a better job at reaching out to all Sacramentans. And what I really mean by that is like the Kings they understand the platform they have, and they truly go out of their way to make their platform work for everyone, right? And we as an organization, we're in tech, but we're also involved in the diversity, equity, inclusion world and the journey that all companies are going on. So to see the Kings as a shining star in like these initiatives, and we just went through Black History Month and everything the Kings have put in, it's just authentic. And everyone can truly see themselves, whether, you grew up in a middle-class family like I did in Davis, and we sat in the upper bowl, or whoever you are, right? They can see themselves not just being a Kings fan, but as a part of the organization, really, right? And that's what the experience is. And so it's, as a person that's raising kids here in Sacramento, like I love having this in our backyard. It's special.
Yeah. Well, and to piggyback on that too, you think about where Golden One is located, right? When we first got the franchise here to town, super exciting. And then when we kept them here, super exciting. And then the most innovative arena in the world gets put right in the heart of town. I mean, look at it made us believe in Sacramento more because the Kings made such an investment right here in our hometown. And I think it's really the talk of the town, and other things have built around it. But obviously when COVID hit, John, it's kind of anybody who does events is taking this big hit, but it's coming back. So can you give us a little color on your perspective there?
Yeah, and your point about putting the arena in the center of town and then watching the region grow around it is right on. And that was Vivek's entire vision, was build it in the center of our capital, blocks away from the capital of the 4th or 5th largest economy in the world. And it will grow and people will sprout around, and that's what we've been seeing. And before COVID hit, everything was really going on all cylinders. So like Doco was vibrant, the arena was vibrant, downtown was vibrant. There's a lot of new developments sprouting up, new restaurants, new businesses. So it was doing exactly what it was meant to be. But obviously when COVID hit, when your main business plan is to bring thousands of people together in small spaces, COVID kind of puts a little wrench in that. So we had to adapt. We had to adapt quickly in ways where, we knew we would come back at some point. So we wanted to make sure our focus really switched to staying in contact and preserving our customer base, giving our customers things throughout the pandemic that they could still stay in association with us. We knew what they were doing. They knew what we were doing. Some innovations really came out of that as well. We talk about entrepreneurship and innovations. The one thing, I'm most proud of from an organization standpoint is the beginning of Doco al fresco. When outdoor dining had become, such a big thing because people wanted to at least, eat outside of their homes for some period of time. We were sitting on, a world-class arena with world-class kitchens, and, none of the stoves were fired up. So we figured, how can we get these things fired up and utilize the resources that we have, and also give the people of Sacramento what they want. So we created Doco al fresco, which was the outdoor dining area right outside the grand entrance of the building, which is a beautiful setting. We used technology to make sure that it was a safe experience where it was touchless and contactless. People just scan the QR code, pay with their phone, and then the food comes delivered to them from any of the restaurants around Doco. But we also were delivering food out of Golden One Center. If someone, really missed just an arena chicken tenders or a hot dog or, stuff like that. I know I did. I ate a lot of those during COVID. It was a way to do that. And then it also gave people an opportunity to come downtown and get people back downtown because the businesses downtown needed it. So we looked at it as, not only a way to start utilizing some of the things that we have, but how do we act as a Kickstarter to make people feel safe, to get out of their house, have a safe experience, during a pandemic, but still be able to enjoy each other's company and enjoy what our city has, which is unbelievable weather, unbelievable food, and unbelievable people.
Yeah. I think about the parallels of sports and business all the time. Andrew, you said you dabbled. I dabbled. I played high school sports. You were a college kicker, so you more than dabbled. You were good. But you think about the perseverance that the The Kings have had to show in their pivot, right? You think about, what are you going to do with what you got? It's a big question we ask ourselves at the Growth Factory. It's what we have to ask ourselves as an athlete. It's like, well, I'm five, whatever, what sport am I going to do? And, you do the best you can with what you got. Andrew, now in building humanly, think about that. Are there sports metaphors or sports parallels that you might say are run deep when it comes to building a business?
Absolutely. I mean, so many levels. I mean, my company's going to laugh, like my team is going to laugh because I use sports cliches all the time. But like for me, like whether it's a startup journey or like for me, I'm the co-founder that focuses on revenue, right? So I'm in charge of sales and marketing and all that kind of stuff. And so for me, I look at building like the revenue engine as building a team sport, right? Like I'm building a football team, a basketball team where like we all have our individual goals as an individual sales rep, right? Or as a business development rep, like, the Kings sales reps, right? They all have their numbers they have to hit, but those all bubble up to team numbers, right? And if we're not doing our individual tasks, if I'm not hitting my kicks, we're not winning our games, we're not, going to the playoffs, right? We're not elevating what it is we're doing, right? And so I think there are so many parallels when it comes to sports. And then, you then layer in what COVID has done, right? And like we were just getting off the ground as a business when COVID hits, and we're helping companies hire. And like come March, the NBA shut down 3 days later. I think pretty much every company immediately was like, the world is ending. What are we going to do? The last thing we're thinking about is hiring, right? And we were almost fortunate. We were so early as a company that we didn't have enough revenue that we were counting on, and our overhead was low enough. We didn't have this whole arena to support, and so we were lucky that we were so early when that happened. And then now what COVID's done to organizations as they look at now, not that COVID's done, but they've now had to make do with what we have in front of us. They're now back to hiring, and they can't hire the same way they used to. They need technology to support the new ways of doing this remote thing, right? And that's really what we've been able to take advantage of and be on the cutting edge of helping organizations navigate this new world.
Yeah, and well, John, you guys are using innovation probably as much as any company in the region or any sports franchise in the world. I mean, when you look at these companies that come through Kings Capitalize, are you looking for some way to make your the Kings more innovative?
Yeah, always. Like we utilize Capitalize in ways to, we're always looking at, is there a way that we can use that business or we can use that offering? Because we are trying to innovate always. And, that's, kind of how Capitalize, like we mentioned before, got kind of started. And so, we continually look at even those companies that may not go all the way to the finals, what they have to offer. We stay in touch with almost everybody, down the line to just see how they're doing, or is there anything that we can do? And it's important because as we've come out of COVID, back to your previous question, I think everything is reopening up, but it wasn't without innovation. Like we were the first arena or stadium, for that matter, for a sports team to have a checkout free store within the building. Now we did that prior to COVID. We did that the year before COVID. We opened up a checkout free store, Zippin, within the arena, so people could just walk in, grab whatever they want off the shelf and walk out. No, you don't have any contact. Now, as you can imagine, as we reopened after COVID, that came in very handy because everyone was looking for contactless experiences. Well, we were way ahead of the game. I got a call from all 29 other of my counterparts around the league asking me, what did you do? How did you do that? We need to get one of those up and running quickly. We were already there. And that's, how we try to innovate. We try to innovate for the future, and try to do things that, may not seem like a big deal today, but we know that's where it's going. Vivek uses a term all the time where he says, like, we don't know 10 years from now if we're going to be using iPhones. We do know 10 years from now, we'll be watching NBA games. So we want to make sure that the experience of watching NBA games can happen regardless of what people are using or regardless of what technologies are out there. So that keeps us moving toward what is that next great technology. And we are not afraid to be the first, and we're not afraid to be kind of a guinea pig for technologies. So we're willing to we're willing to fail with startup companies. If the idea ends up not working, okay, well, at least we tried it, and we're willing to kind of be that platform. And that's probably how we, stay at the top of the cutting edge in that regard.
Well, I mean, that's to me, we started the Growth Factory, and it's an accelerator with an accompanying venture fund, but also this backyard advantage. And we're rallying the civic-minded leaders that think like that, right? That say, you know what, I'll give a startup a shot if it fits within our business. Because I mean, that's how we build a more innovative society, and it's good for the startups, which is good for the region. But maybe just, I think I don't know how much time we have left, but I want to make sure I ask the question about the basketball team, right? As we ask the question of ourselves, what are you going to do with what you got? That's what the basketball team's got to do too, because they've, in order to have a really successful business, we got to have a great basketball team to go along with it. You guys recently added Sabonis. I mean, how many puzzle pieces are needed at this point to really give the Kings what they need to put, to be a playoff team and really a contender?
Well, I will say that I am glad that I oversee the business side of the equation, and like Monty has to oversee the basketball side, because it's a puzzle. Like it's really difficult. But as you can see, he's making very good and strong calculated moves in order to get this team where he wants to be, which everyone wants it to be, a playoff team, not only for a year, but long term, like continually be in the playoffs. And those are the type of moves that he's making, and those are the types of moves that you saw him make. But like I said, I am glad that is on his plate and not mine, because sometimes an impossible task, but he's been doing a great job at just kind of moving that forward. And we're excited. We're really excited about where the team is going and, what the future holds. And in the meantime, we're just going to continue to make sure the platform that team is playing under is the strongest in all sports.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll just give a couple of you guys a chance to give some closing thoughts, but I'd also like your perspective on where we're at as a region. Andrew, you're in the heart of the startup ecosystem, as am I. So you and I sort of live the startup world, if you will, the venture world. And I think, John, on a bigger picture, you're you're one of the biggest employers. You're one of the main guys in the entire business community. Maybe just your perspective on where we're at as a region and where we're going. John, you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. I think as a region, like I said, we were in a complete upward trajectory prior to COVID. I think from a region standpoint, we were just in a growth mode that I don't think any other city in the country could see. And I think now, even that COVID is kind of not going away, but we're starting to learn how to live with it and operate our businesses within that that system. That growth is going to continue to grow. Sacramento is has the most one-way U-Hauls, coming into it. Most people around the country moving into Sacramento. With that comes a lot of diversity, a lot of different ways to think, and a lot of innovation. So we're looking forward to that. And then last, I think, as a region, I think we are realizing as a business community that it really is up to us to help lift up those parts of our community that need it the most. And obviously Andrew is big on that. And that's kind of where we focus as well. What can we do, to help those underserved communities? How can we offer opportunities for our young people equal, no matter where you live or where you grow up or what your background is, to have an equal chance for a quality education or quality employment, regardless of what path you choose to take. I'll close. We just recently had a panel that was really, really strong from my standpoint. It was called The Future of Tech and Investing, and it was supporting Black and diverse entrepreneurs. And on it, we had just an incredible panel that included Baron Davis, Meta World Peace, former Mayor Stockton, Michael Tubbs, Vivek, and Matt Barnes was the moderator. And it was really, it was given in front of some, community groups that, were looking for some help and looking for some advice on, how do I invest? How do I get people to invest in me? And the panel just had some really, really great insights. And it was one of the more powerful ones that, I have been a part of, not actually on the panel, but watching. And that's where our future is. Again, I go back to our future is in our youth and our young adults. And as much as we can support them is going to be how much Sacramento will grow. Right now, Andrew mentioned at the beginning, Sacramento is an incredible place to live. It's an incredible place to raise a family. My kids have all grown up here. I now have a 16, 17, 18, and 19-year-old, and, they're all Sacramentans. It's one where now is how do we take that group of people and see what they can do over the next 50 years?
Yeah. Well, I love that you're investing into our young people and exposing the underserved communities to what's possible and educating them and giving them the opportunities. That's what the Kings stand for. And that's, we all tip our cap to that. Well, Andrew, we're going to give you the final words, man. Bring us home,
here.
Close it out with some words of inspiration. Tell us where this community is going, and hopefully give us an uplifting message if you're in entrepreneurship.
No. And Mark, we've talked about this a lot, right? But I've lived quite a few places, right? I mentioned being in the Bay Area, in the South Bay, as well as in San Francisco. And one thing that I feel I've never found outside of Sacramento is that connection that, John talks about his kids being Sacramentans, right? And me raising my 6 and my 3-year-old here in town. Like I feel like Sacramento, whether it's the chip on our shoulder being the capital city and no one giving us credit for that, or whatever it is, like I feel anyone that is here, that's grown up here, that is a part of they genuinely want this to be the best place to raise a family, the best place to run a business, the best place to have a sports team, right? Like they all genuinely at their core want this to be the best, right? And because we have that here, that magic you talk about, that backyard advantage, Mark, like everything else, all other parts of life build on that. And it only, continues to make that even better, right? And when it comes to entrepreneurship, again, you need everyone. It takes a village to do what we're doing and what Grin's done and what everyone's done, right? And it takes people like John in the business community. It takes all sorts of people, employees, investors, advisors, all that to make this a success. And I feel like that's what's special about Sacramento. That's why we're seeing this hyper growth and people are identifying that, hey, I want to be a part of that community that's not just here for now, but for the future. And that's what gets me really excited.
John Rinehart, Sacramento Kings, Andrew Gardner, Humanly, two of my favorite teams in the whole world. Thank you for joining me on the show.
Welcome back to the Mark Haney Show. And today, it was such an honor to be having Andrew Gardner, the co-founder of Humanly, along with John Rinehart of the Sacramento Kings, the president of business operations. And we were able to talk about Kings Capitalize, which is such an important part of Sacramento's entrepreneurial ecosystem and our innovation economy. And this pitch competition truly is a gem for the Sacramento region. So many of our local entrepreneurs over the years have applied for this, and the ones that have won, a few of them, I am fortunate enough to have invested into. I am invested into Humanly. In full disclosure, I did invest into Trifecta Nutrition, who won 1 year, and maybe a few others. But it's truly a pleasure and a prideful opportunity for me to see what my local basketball team is doing for this cause that I love, this cause of entrepreneurship. So to see two things align like that is very special to me, and I think it's really, really impactful for the Sacramento region. One of the things that we talked about on the show today is the sixth man, right? The Sacramento Kings have been around since, I don't know when they got here, the mid-'80s, something like that. And when they first came out, it was a couple of arenas ago. It was like the old Arco, and then they had the new Arco, and now they're at Golden One. But when, on the show, I talked a little bit about this, but it really made an impact to me going to those first Sacramento Kings basketball games. My brother and I bought season tickets. We sat up in the nosebleeds, we were like 3 or 4 seats from the very, very top because we didn't have a lot of money, but we love basketball, and we now had a professional basketball team. And what was really, I guess, inspirational for me, and I think it ties back to entrepreneurship in a big way, is what they call the sixth man, and the amount of noise that the Kings fans have the ability to make when they get fired up is nothing short of miraculous. And we haven't seen that as much of late. And I don't know if it's the acoustics at Golden One, or maybe, it's just having a sold out arena. But back then, it was truly spectacular. And so if you think about the people making that much noise, that they actually call it a six-man, that you actually have an advantage, right? The crowd, everybody's got a home court advantage, home field advantage at some level. But when they make enough noise where the opposing players can barely think, now you have a differentiated advantage, and the Sacramento Kings had that. And so for all of you out there that are building businesses, we're all looking for our differentiation. We want to build something that's a little bit different. And if it's different enough, then it can become an advantage. And if it's different enough, it can be like what some people might think is an almost an unfair competitive advantage. The Kings, with the cowbell bells ringing in the ears of the opponent's players near the bench. I mean, it really was. We drove those players crazy, and it was an unfair competitive advantage. And so if you're building a business, you might want to be thinking about what's your unfair competitive advantage, because building a business, it's harder than it seems. Every business that I know starts off with this big dream. We're going to be great. And then lo and behold, it's a lot harder than you think. And so if you don't go into it knowing that it's going to be hard and that you're going to have to discover your competitive advantage, because typically you don't have the competitive advantage figured out at the beginning, right? I don't think the Kings knew that cowbells were going to be their competitive advantage for the sixth man, but it ended up happening. You discover that along the way. And those kinds of things, they are discoverable. So if you're going through that journey now and you don't feel like your advantage is clicking, don't quit. It will come. The discovery, well, I like to say the truth is in the trenches. The discoveries will happen if you are down in the trenches with your teammates or with your customers, with your stakeholders. The discoveries will happen, and they're going to come in a way probably where you don't really expect it. That's what happened with the Kings. That's what's happened in every single one of my businesses. It's like, wow, I didn't expect that to be the thing. Well, here at the Growth Factory, we've launched this startup accelerator and an accompanying venture fund, and what we're calling the Backyard Advantage, which is really the leaders of Sacramento uniting around the most promising startups. And so we've invested into our first group of companies, and they're going through the accelerator, the boot camp, and getting introduced to the investors, are getting introduced to the mentors and corporate partners and the leaders of Sacramento. And we're beginning to make discoveries. We're beginning to discover that opening doors for our portfolio company founders is the answer, right? It's like a cowbell. If we can open a door for a portfolio company founder, if we can introduce him to the Sacramento Kings or to somebody else that makes it nice and easy. I mean, how do you get to a leader at the Sacramento Kings? It's hard to do. It's hard to get those doors to open if you're just a 1 or 2 person show, right? You're just a startup. And that's, I think, what the beauty of the Growth Factory is. We've begun to open doors. We've begun to make introductions in a way that is truly remarkable. And okay, so I can open doors because I know a lot of people. My teammates know a lot of people. They can open doors. But when our investors begin to open doors, when our corporate partners begin to open doors, when our mentors begin to open doors, it's like, wow, this is 6 degrees of separation from anyone you might want to know in our region to help you advance your business to that next level. And I think in many ways, the backyard advantage is the sixth man for the entrepreneur of Sacramento. So if you are interested in getting involved in the Growth Factory as an investor, as a mentor, as a corporate partner, or, we have a new cohort coming out, hit me up. Maybe you can be part of the advantage, or maybe you can embrace the advantage in a way that helps you. But either way, if you are civic-minded and you love entrepreneurship, you believe in the power of with, I want to know you. Hit me up at the Mark Haney on social media, or come down to my offices in Rockland at the Growth Factory on Granite Drive in Rockland. And to all you out there fighting the good fight for our freedom, our security, and our way of life, and those fighting the good fight for entrepreneurship, here at the Growth Factory, here at Haney Biz, we're never above you. We're never below you.
Thanks for watching today's show. My goal for every episode is that you find a takeaway, something tangible you can use in your business today. And if you have a comment about a favorite takeaway, feel free to put it in the box below. And if you have a topic that you'd like me to bring up on the show, don't forget to let me know. And also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want to learn more about entrepreneurship. Because at Haney Biz, we are always by your side.